Sure, you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
For your first radio show appearance?
Yes, I'm ready to become a celebrity.
Excellent.
He's gonna be a star.
Butterscotch Hey everybody, welcome to episode 57 of Coffee with Butterscotch, the game dev comedy podcast of Butterscotch Shenanigans. I'm Seth and I'm the games programmer.
I'm Sam and I'm the art programmer.
I'm Carol and I'm the nerd herder.
I'm Sure, and I'm the game mechanic.
And today is July 26, 2016. And before we get started, we have a warning. Anything could happen on this show. There's going to be profanity, all kinds of other stuff too. So if you are a youngster or a child or whatever.
Wee babe.
If you got the sensitive mind parts.
Yeah, if you're a wee babby.
A wee.
Get yourself out of here. Okay. What's going on this week, guys? Well, we have a new voice.
A new Butterscotch.
This is Sure. Well, why don't you tell us about yourself? What
Hello,
are you doing here?
Who are you?
Hello, everybody. My name is Sure. Very nice to be on the podcast. I'm the new game mechanic in training, and I've been doing a bunch of learning in the training dungeon. Just looking at all the gorgeous.
That's what we call it.
Yeah, looking at all the gorgeous torturing tools, game making tools, and just learning how to use them.
And we got a good picture of you. I think we put up yesterday.
Yeah.
Of you next to the whiteboard with just a whole bunch of really bizarre drawings behind you of weird, sad-looking, amorphous shaped things. And
if you read it deep enough, though, you'll see the meaning behind it.
Well, I like the picture because it looks like it's one of those pictures where you have like the mind of a person sort of blown out behind them in visual form.
Like a real life comic book thing.
Right. Like all the equations that are going on. You know?
Yeah.
It's a description of my mental state, that my mind being blown.
No, what I thought was kind of funny though was somebody made a joke about it on Twitter, and they go, "Oh, depth equals negative y. I know your secrets now." But actually, that's a really important function that is used to make all of our top-down games. So I guess they did learn something.
Yeah.
And where are you from originally? You're from.
I was originally from China, moved to the United States when I was 16, had high school here, had college here, and now I'm here making games.
Now, were you a fluent English speaker when you came to the U.S.?
When I was first here, when people ask me what's up, I literally look up and just be like, nothing is up.
There is
what are you
nothing.
talking about?
Weirdos.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah. So, anyway, welcome to the studio. It's been great having you here. He's been very laser focused for the past couple weeks. So I'm kind of running him through the ringer.
I think what game are you making this week?
This week,
the next 2 days.
Yeah, it's called the Battle Chickens. And I've been making motion action focused games in the past 2 weeks. So right now I'm doing a more interface heavy, turn based. A little bit like Pokemon, so trying to explore like a different element to learn a few new things.
So our next game is going to be Battle Chickens Go.
Battle Chickens Go.
This is the official announcement.
Yeah.
You're all the first to hear it.
Yeah, and we aren't devoting any art resources to it, so it will be sort of stick figure-esque.
But the cool thing is, Sure's training regiment is pretty freaking intense. So the last 2 weeks has been a game a week. Last 2 weeks, and then now it's a game in 4 days.
3 days.
3 days.
This week.
And then so he's making actually 2 games this week. So he finishes this one on Wednesday, and then another one by Friday, and then next week is a game every day. Which, if some of you have been around for a while, you might have remembered the Butterscotch Jam, where Seth and I did that every day for 5 days, which pumped out a lot of weird stuff, including extreme sloth cycling, which will never see the light of day, but it exists. So,
and we also did.
Freeway.
We also did our speed crafting, where every Monday we made a game, and that's where Flop Rocket and Roid Rage came from as well.
Yep.
So it is possible to make a decent game in a day, and that's where we're going to be getting Sure up to that point.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see all the weird stuff that you come up with. It's already been really fun to see all the games you've been putting out, and I wonder if there's a way for us to like share those with people, or if that's not a thing that we should do.
Maybe. Well, it's these are sort of like these are disposable experiments, that are meant for learning.
So like sketches, I guess.
Yeah. You ever hear the phrase like, we're just going to throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks?
Yeah.
So in this case, we're just throwing Sure at the wall. Until he sticks.
That's true.
Every day.
But
Very
they're
true.
funny. I mean, they're game jam games, so it's fun little little goofy things to see what what somebody who's new to game development can create in a short period of time. I think it could actually be really
Yeah.
Sure,
fun
you'd
to
only made
see.
one game before this,
Yes,
but you
one-
had programmed, right?
No, not really.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, he's learning everything from the
Yeah.
ground up.
Trial
It's
by
honestly,
fire.
it's tremendously like exciting experience. Just learning a lot of new things, and just like and unlearning a lot of things too. Because the main thing is the biggest point is just remain flexible and then let the fun emerge.
Mhm.
Because previously I always thought, okay, I have this great idea, I have this best idea, I'm gonna make this best game.
Mhm.
But then as you actually build it, you find out you can actually tweak things around to make it even more fun
Mhm.
versus than what you originally imagined. So you kind of have to let it emerge.
Iteration
Iteration
is a big
instead
deal.
of vision.
And this is why we always kind of say that if somebody wants to be a game designer, that it's kind of a weird thing to think that you can do if you've never actually built a game, right?
Mhm.
Because you can sort of armchair design and critique other people's games that they've made, but until you've actually put the systems together yourself and started tweaking the knobs and changing the values,
Play
it's just-
testing and seeing reactions.
yeah,
and yeah.
it is just really, really hard to know what works and what doesn't.
Absolutely.
So, and then otherwise, we're on new podcasting equipment.
Yeah.
We
Super
finally
fancy.
got some mics intended to be used the way that we were
Or
using
podcast.
them.
So I really hope we sound good. Do we sound better?
Who knows?
Let
We
us
won't
know on
until-
well,
podcast.bscotch.net.
to be fair, this is our first time using it, so I don't know.
We may or may not
and we
sound
are
good.
on these kind of squeaky cardboard chairs,
Yeah.
which might be bad.
I'm trying to restrain my movement.
Yeah, we got to hold still.
Hold on to your butt jiggles.
Yeah, but
out of control.
the problem we had before was so we were all using USB mics and we were recording on individual computers. And one thing we didn't know, and Fat Bard, who does all of our podcast editing, revealed to us is that these USB mics, they get out of sync just a little bit. And so by the time you've done a 1 hour podcast, everybody's mic is just a few seconds off of everybody else's mic. So we did all this elaborate crap, like we would clap 5 times at the beginning of the podcast and then clap 5 times at the end of the podcast. And then he would sync up the claps and shrink the
Like
tracks.
stretch out our tracks so that they would match.
Yeah, and then apparently, I think last week, it was last week. We had a weird error at the end where somebody stopped recording and then started recording again right before we did the claps, and then one track was out of sync and it just sounded like a crazy echo. So now we all have real equipment meant to be in the same room.
Yeah.
Hopefully it sounds better
And
for
he
you
just-
guys.
Yeah, he came in and he just like swooped in,
Yeah.
set it up, and left within
He's
5,
sort
10
of an
minutes.
audio eagle. He
Yeah.
just-
I went over I went over to his place last night because his wife teaches voice lessons. I'm taking voice lessons from her.
Oh, cool.
And so Patrick was in there in his little audio dungeon doing his thing. And I walk in and there's this really intense, creepy music. It sounds kind of like a blend between Inception and some sort of like dark horror music. And he has this really cool thing called music to art, art to music, where he'll make a song and send it to an artist and then they make a picture, or an artist gives him a piece of artwork and then he makes a song out of it. And so he was doing that one that day. And the piece of artwork was this creepy, big, like fortress skeletal looking thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the music he built was this, I mean, I'm sure you can probably find it. It's probably up to date. But it's this just terrifying, like grinding. It was incredible to see. And he's like, oh, it's not done yet. I've been working on it for 10 minutes. I'm like, what?
Yeah, he's fast.
He's a wizard.
Fast and good.
He's a pro.
And then this morning we played some Codename Brunch.
Codename Brunch, playable.
Oh,
Yeah.
so good. So all that's there because I crunched out the numbers, and it turns out that just because of our various other commitments right now, I have to put about 96% of my work time into Crashlands still. And so I haven't been able to work on Codename Brunch as much as I'd like, also known as Zero. But we have kind of an existing playable build where basically you can just be a quadrupus and you can run around over the local network.
Mhm.
And so we had 4 of us
Yeah.
in there running
Yeah.
around, and it was weirdly entertaining.
Getting attacked by weird placeholder NPCs.
Placeholder NPC is named
Rascals.
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 Damn those
They're just like these little white snowman looking things.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's cool to see the networking actually go, and just to feel that little beginning part of how fun it is to actually hang out with other people in a game context again.
Yeah, with no
Can't
game
wait for it.
mechanics or anything. All you can do is run around next to each other.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, even in this context, you both knew more about the environment than me and Andy did.
Mm.
And so you would say, hey, follow me. We're going to go to the grasslands. So we just followed you directly north of where we were. And suddenly it started turning green. Lo and behold, it's the grasslands. And it's just like that little secret thing of the multiplayer.
Sharing knowledge,
the multiplayer sharing knowledge and like exposing the various secrets and excitements of the game.
I can't wait.
I mean, it's so minuscule right now, but even just that element of we're all hanging out in a game space.
And I will show you the world.
Yeah, I can show you the grasslands.
Now, I have another secret about the grasslands.
Oh, yeah?
You can just actually go any direction.
Is
and
it
you'll be
radial?
in the grasslands. You just got to walk.
Well, as we said, everything is super hacked in right now. I think the other
Yeah.
exciting thing about it is Carol and I have been planning, primarily Carol. Actually, Carol's been
We've been working pretty
we've
hard
been
together.
brainstorming together, and then Carol's been putting together the plans for what we refer to as the hype train.
Choo-choo.
Choo-choo.
All aboard.
All aboard the hype train. So we're going to Codename Brunch on the hype train, and so the question that we've been trying to answer is when we look at these games that have had sort of knockout successes, indies, talking about something like Starbound or Nuclear Throne, a lot of these games that frankly have done a way better job of letting people know that they exist than we ever have. We wanted to ask the question, how did they do that, and how could we do better at that? And so we've been trying to answer that this week, and I think we've come up with a really cool schedule for sort of baseline content and community content, which will start rolling out end of this week and next week, which includes stories and art and a bunch of other cool stuff.
Yeah, we're gonna start this whole new thing when we roll out the new website. We're gonna be doing the Scoop of Butterscotch weekly roundup.
Yeah,
that
The
just kind
butter
of gives you-
scoop.
The butter scoop. So it's like another window into the studio to kind of talk about what we've done and show you all the stuff that we've put out. So if you miss Twitter posts or if you miss Instagrams and things like that and the lore posts,
Yeah,
Not that
and
you should. Though.
not that
No,
you should.
yeah. You should definitely be just voraciously reading absolutely everything.
Yeah, turn on alerts for just when we post so that it just comes through like a text message. Like,
Yes.
oh, Butterscotch
Yeah,
posted another
turn on
selfie.
an alarm, put an alarm in your house that is super blaringly loud and make it, hook it up with
and to
IFT.
make sure that you don't miss anything, you should probably just unsubscribe from all other non-butterscotch related subreddits,
Mhm.
content, probably block all your friends from sending you texts.
It's important
so you
not
don't
to
miss
be
one.
well-rounded.
Yeah. Yeah.
We want you to dedicate your life to us.
Yeah.
So we're gonna
Join
try to
us.
provide that level of depth and stuff. And I think
Are you butterscotchy? Get sticky.
what's next? Get sticky. What's next on the schedule? I guess tomorrow's Wednesday, so this podcast will
Tomorrow's
be coming out.
podcast day. And then Thursday, this is something that we're going to experiment with.
Mhm.
We want to do karaoke Thursday.
Which will just be a real quick clip of all of us in the office singing something
'Cause
because
we
we do it
sing
all the
so
time.
much.
Yeah, we're always screaming and singing. So that'll be probably on Instagram or Twitter, I guess. They're going
All
both.
of it.
All of it.
We're going to put it on all of it.
Everything.
Twitter just announced that they can allow up to 140 seconds worth of video.
Whoa.
So we can have
We could do a full
over
song.
2 minutes. Over 2 minutes. You
That's a
make
pretty
me
big
feel
departure from
Right?
6 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Pretty phenomenal.
Cool.
So-
Yeah, so we're really excited to be rolling that out. And if you guys have any suggestions, we have a bunch of fun ideas up our sleeve that we'll be implementing here and over the next couple of weeks. When Adam and Andy get off being able to are doing their Butterscotch ID system stuff and creator work. So if you have any ideas though about games that you've seen that you were maybe following for 6 months, a year before they came out, and you thought, whoa, they did this thing that was just freaking awesome, whether it was merch beforehand or just dev streams regularly. We got some other really fun stuff in the works, but we definitely like to hear if anybody has ideas.
Yeah. And what would be fun?
What would be cool?
Yeah.
What we want to do.
What would get you high?
Yeah. Get a boat
Juice
ride.
box underpants.
Carol, that was an excellent gasp.
Now, Carol,
Yes.
you did something weird recently.
Carol was supposed to learn how to kill a man on Saturday. I think that's
Yeah. So I set up a few weeks back. I decided, you know what I really want to do? I want to learn some fucking Krav Maga.
so.
Yeah,
What's
not
Krav
just
Maga?
regular.
Yeah, what is Krav Maga?
Yeah. So Krav Maga is, I think it's an Israeli military martial art.
Hmm.
So it is meant to fuck you up. If you're on
Well,
the
no,
other side of
fuck
it.
up the opponent.
Fuck up somebody.
Right? Isn't the goal? It's supposed to be like the shortest route to death for the other person is like the mantra of Krav Maga.
Sounds
right?
about right,
You're supposed to
basically.
it's for killing.
So,
Attorney is
So I
your
was
killing
like, you know,
machine.
Yeah.
I would like to understand how to utilize my
Sure,
body
it's
in
important.
an extenuating circumstance. And so I put it out on, on my social media. I was like, hey, ladies, I'm going to set up a private class for women only for Krav Maga. Anybody interested? Let me know. And I got like 15 girls who were like, fuck yes.
I'm gonna kill a man.
Awesome.
And that 15 girls eventually became 5 girls.
Of course.
But so we set up a class at a martial arts studio here in St. Louis, and we had it over this weekend. And we show up, and the guy's like, "Well, what do you actually want to learn?" And we're like, we're interested in doing this for self-defense, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "Well, let me tell you what. I'm a cop. I've been a cop for 20 years." And I've been a detective for 10 years, and I have seen some shit. And he goes and he lectures us for like a half an hour, and then he goes and grabs dull knives and has us start like, he goes, this side, this is Mr. Pokey. This side, this is Mr. Slicey.
What?
And he continues to show us how to disarm knife-wielding criminals instead of actually teaching us Krav Maga. So the 5 of us are just like walking around this martial arts studio stabbing each other and like pretending to slice each other. And like we're just like learning how to like, basically secure the knife and then disarm it. And
Do you
then
secure it in your chest?
basically you use your body.
You take the first stab and then you just wrench it away.
No, I mean, part of it is you have to think about where, that's why he explained the difference between Mr. Pokey and Mr. Slicey. You have to think about where the knife has to go in order to cause you lethal harm. And then you have to secure the knife using your body basically as an anchor. And then that's when you actually start pulling the other person and break some fucking arms and wrists.
Wow.
And so we had to do it all completely slow motion because he was saying that somebody in class before had actually broken her wrist while doing practice work. And he's like, she screamed so much.
I like how that's what he was upset about.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Really
she
noisy.
really did some Krav Maga though.
Yeah.
Because a wrist was broken.
I feel like if
Yeah.
you're like, I went to Krav Maga and someone broke their wrist,
But I'm
that
pretty
would be
sure
par for the
that
course.
seems
it
reasonable.
wasn't actually Krav Maga. He was just like teaching us street smarts and some weird hybrid.
Was it still good or was it?
It was.
I guess the expectation
It was
kind of violated.
patronizing. He was so sexist. He's like, why do you always want to slice people from behind? What do they teach you that in chick flicks or some shit? And then like,
What is chick flicks?
I don't know
I
what
don't
chick
know.
flicks he watches.
I know,
Yeah.
right?
That is not in the Notebook.
And he was like, women are way more likely to cut men or cut people than men are because they're more emotional, and knives are an emotional weapon.
what?
Like, you're emotional, and I love you for it, but you're gonna cut me.
Wow.
I was like, yeah, well, now I will.
He really has seen some shit. That's for sure.
Right? And so we all went to go get coffee to decompress afterwards. So we're like, so Aikido after this? Tai Chi? Maybe not. Knife wielding? Because he was like,
man.
next class I'll teach you how to handle guns. And we're all like
God.
backing away slowly, like, we just wanted to learn martial arts. We're just gonna. So we're looking for an Aikido place now.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea to do like sort of martial arts rotations, just
Yeah.
just sort of briefly touch on all of them, just kind of explore the ones you want and then find one that maybe matches your style more.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about Aikido is it kind of lines up more along the lines of what I was saying about how I want to know how to utilize my body too.
Isn't that where you whack people with a big stick?
No.
Isn't that what Aikido is?
Aikido is you basically use your body weight and your opponent's body weight to
Isn't that judo?
maybe,
I don't know.
Judo
think
is
they're
the
kind
throwing
of similar
one. Or
on
they
that.
might be similar.
Yeah.
but it's as non-violent as a martial arts gets, as far as I understand. Is you're not punching, you're not kicking, you are
Throwing
basically
them.
trying to disarm as best as possible without injuring.
Yeah, Aikido's like, excuse my limited Japanese knowledge, but then Aikido's Aiki actually means something. I think is like the harmony of your ki, so the harmony of your energy. So it's a way of harmonizing your energy. So that's
And then throwing people.
right. So it's
After
kind of
you've
like
done
you obtain your internal harmony, then you can better use those energies out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that sounds way more exciting to me now after experiencing Mr. Slicey and
The
Mr.
knife guy.
Pokey.
I can't believe this.
It was pretty weird.
Well, I have a story yesterday, from this morning actually, which involves a lot more harm than your self-defense class. In
Oh,
fact.
no.
So
Wow.
this morning I get up at the ripe old time of 6 o'clock, get dressed and everything, quietly exit the bedroom because the fiance's still sleeping, and get my stuff set up on the computer, and then decide to go downstairs, grab a cup of coffee. And as I'm walking down the stairs, it's been the case that in our house, we had a handyman come by to do some work, and he lovingly like pledged the floors. Okay. After he left to clean everything up. But for some reason, this was like 6 weeks ago, they're just slick. So if you're wearing socks, it's like a death trap, okay?
Cleaned them too well.
So I've been being very careful, but on my way down the stairs today, at the top of the stairs, I stepped and just lost my balance completely. Right? Like my foot just left the staircase.
No.
And so I fell down the stairs.
Oh my god!
And I'm holding it in my right hand.
Wait, you mean the staircase that kind of wraps around? Did you go down the hole?
I was on the first landing, so I wasn't going to tumble down the whole thing. Like, change directions, just the bottom half of it.
Okay.
But I was holding my like pill box, which is that 7x4 ridiculous pill box,
Oh, no.
or 7x5. And so I go tumbling down, and I grab with one arm. I grab the banister, and so I managed to basically slow myself down, so I stop at the second step to the bottom. So I managed to save myself one bump. Pretty sure I like ripped something in my shoulder. I'm not sure what's happening. It just hurts a lot today. But yeah, so I thumped down the stairs, and these pillbox things go just fucking flying all over the place.
Did the pills come out? Was it?
There were no pills in it. I was going down to fill it up.
Okay.
So there were no pills in it, luckily.
Thank God for no pill confetti.
But they really went all over the place. Like they went flying. I'm not sure how hard I was flailing with my right arm, but apparently it was powerful. And the best part of it was I hit the stairs, and I'm like, oh! And then I'm still like gripping onto the banister with this death grip, so I slowly let go, and then I'm just sort of waving my arm around. I'm still just laying on the stairs, and I look over and just start, putting this pillbox back together while I'm stretching my arm, get back up, and Diana's usually a light sleeper in the morning, so I assumed that me falling down the staircase and making a shitload of noise, she would have been like, "Oh, are you okay? What happened?" So there's nothing. And then I go down, making my coffee. So there's now a few minutes pass. And then I hear from upstairs, "See ya!" Like, as if it's on a 5-minute delay. Like, what the... And so I go back up there, and
You limped up there with
she
your
didn't
hobbled
even
shoulder.
know. She was like, "Hey, how's it going?" Just screaming because she was awake. And I was like, "Did you hear the big noise?" She's like, "Yeah, I thought it was in my dream. I woke up." And I was like, "No, that was me falling down the stairs and nearly
5
dying."
minutes ago.
So yeah, that happened.
Oh,
Well, I guess
wow.
we'll see today how your injuries progress.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's as sore as it's gonna get, because it's really tender.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, I got one story before we get to questions as well. So our dad came down to visit this weekend, and he is basically a druid. So he
Yeah.
somehow knows every plant and everything there is to know about every plant in the universe. So much so that Adam's wife has taken to as just a hobby, taking pictures of random plants she comes across and just texting them to him and saying, "What is this?" And he'll instantly reply with a Wikipedia-like knowledge of where it grows and what it's called and how to cultivate it and
How
everything.
much sunlight it needs.
Yeah, so he was over here last weekend, and he was just kind of scoping out the trees in my yard, and he looks at the tree in the front yard. He looks up and he goes, "Oh." And I said, "What?" And he goes, "Well, you got a branch up there that has an old grapevine wrapped around it. I'm pretty sure at some point somebody planted some grapevines on this tree and it grew up too high, and at a certain point it strangled that branch up there." He's like, "That branch is weak because of this grapevine."
So he's just looking at this tree
Yeah.
that has a little.
He just glanced at this tree and he goes, "That branch, that's gonna come down." And I was like, "Oh, huh." So
Whatever,
Dad.
So I'm like, I should probably take care of that. And 2 days later, a big ass storm comes, and that branch is laying on my front yard with a big ass grapevine wrapped right around the base. I'm just like, what the hell, man?
Who is this guy?
Yeah.
Did you tell him that he has some sort of
I haven't told him, but he does listen to this podcast, so he will hear it.
Send you a text today. Be
Way
like,
to
"I
go,
told
Dad."
you so. I'm a druid. Don't fuck with me."
Yeah, so now I got to figure out how to get this giant branch removed from my front yard, but that happened.
All right, well, let's move on to questions. Now that we got all of our stories out for the last couple of days. Questions come from podcast.bscotch.net, and you can ask them whether or not you have a Bscotch ID or just as an anonymous user. If you have a Bscotch ID, you get a perk that you can use on the forums, which is a cool coffee avatar. And
so cool.
So cool. And of course, you get us to answer your questions. You get to put your words in our mouth.
Which is not as cool, but the avatar is
Tastes
good.
kind of gross.
It tastes disgusting every single
Please
time.
wash
but
your hands.
I think it's like coffee or wine, It's an acquired taste, other people's questions.
Yeah, the way
Okay.
you acquire an acquired taste is just by drinking it or consuming it a lot while it tastes terrible.
Mm.
And eventually you just get used to how bad it is.
And then you're like, I can distinguish between how bad this one is and how bad this one is. And then you're a connoisseur, right?
Yes.
At that
Yeah.
point.
Yes.
So first question comes from Garen, who asks, during your podcast, you develop very interesting names for various demons. There's the Fantastake demon, the robo-mowing ghost goat, mole bathers, bacon babies. Do you ever consider including these manifestations in your games?
Oh.
Oh, well, we haven't, but now that you bring it up, sure, let's do it.
That's a good idea.
Well, I mean,
we never did talk about the codename brunch name ideas because that was in the Lost podcast.
oh, was it?
That was in the Lost podcast.
Oh, yeah. Maybe we should talk about that.
I don't even remember.
Because he's
So,
lost.
Carol, bring us up to date.
Bring us up to speed.
So, in the Lost podcast, we mentioned that we were for codename brunch going to name all of the enemies after old people words.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Which you're not supposed to call them that, apparently.
Is that not a? Is
Well,
that
no,
not
it's
an
just
okay
because
term?
we asked Dad, our Druid father, we're like, hey, what are some of those
Give
old
us
people?
some good old people words.
And he was like, fuck you asking me right now. I'm like, those weird words you use because you're old.
I'm gonna call the rave of the grape on you now.
But
Yeah,
he
Wrath
knew
of the
exactly
Grapes.
what you were talking about.
He did.
He's like, oh, you mean whippersnappers?
Yeah, he did. He
He
was just
knew.
upset
He's-
that he knew, I think, Like, I don't want to know this knowledge because that puts me in this category you've created for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we- I mean, they are, but still, we should maybe think of
Maybe
a better
they're,
name.
what do you call them? Like antiques. Antique.
Antique
That might be
words.
worse. How about words from the
Old people.
50s?
How about
maybe
classy old words?
mid-century colloquialisms.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh.
Father, could you tell me some of those mid-century colloquialisms? Perhaps you could use your druid powers and we could spot some grapevines.
Yeah, so what are some of them? What are we doing?
Well, so the interesting thing we found is that you have to be very careful because it turns out a lot of these mid-century colloquialisms
Are mega racist.
are basically racist terms, which was very surprising. 'cause
I'd say
there's-
about 2/3.
Yeah. So
them.
we were going through this list and literally just looked up, and again, I looked up old people words, and I found these huge lists of them. So clearly, I'm not necessarily in the wrong when it comes to the category here. Everybody agrees. So we're going through, and I just grabbed a ton of them and put them in, and then I think one of them I had just read a New York Times article about someone's misuse of. It was some word that was actually slang for a Jewish person,
Oh,
but that
geez.
now, but nowadays because it's been so long that people have used it in that particular context that it's sort of lost. It's lost a lot of that racial edge to it. And most people don't know that it's a
Even
thing.
something that's a negative
And so
connotation.
some journalists used it and had used it before, and no one had ever said a word about it. And then it got sort of called out by someone. I can't remember what the word was, but I just read that article randomly like the day before, and then I saw that in the list, and it set off this alarm. I was like, oh no. We could publish this game and then have some terrible term in here. So I went through and did like the etymological, is that what it is? Sort of look
Find
up
the history of every
of
word.
each one of those words. And yeah, surprising number of them. Terrible in origin. So we had to cut those out. But there's really good stuff. Like whippersnapper's a good one. Rascal's great.
Scamp.
Scamp.
Scallywag.
Scallywags. Rapscallion is a good one. So they all have a good vibe to them. I'm not sure what it
They're
is
just
exactly.
goofy words.
Yeah, they're super weird.
They're fun
so,
to say.
So we're gonna try to pull those in. But of course, I mean, as I think Gavin noted, we tend to just make up words a lot, and the portmanteauing of them ends up making really weird creatures, anyways. So
What I'm most excited about is the dangs and the hot dangs.
yeah,
That's going to be sort of a fire infused version of the dang.
I
Yeah.
think
We don't
we
even
should
know
also
what a
have
dang is.
Hex.
Hex.
yeah. Oh yeah, we have
Hex.
hex on
We
there.
got a couple
Okay.
of hex and a dang.
Hecka.
Yeah.
There's a hot dang, 3 hex coming in.
What the heck? That's an army of dangs.
So yeah, if you thought the text in Crashlands was weird, you're gonna be in for a treat here
Yeah.
coming up.
But maybe we can work some of the podcast demon names in there as
Oh,
well
yeah.
for some bosses.
Oh
Fantastic.
yeah, maybe some more cross perks.
cross.
Yes.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Listen to
Build
the
them into
podcast.
Crashlands or something.
Yeah, you give us the name. Oh, Hashtag mid-century colloquialisms. You give us some good.
Oh yeah, hit us with
ads.
those.
Give us some good
Okay.
non-racist, non-sexist, mid-century colloquialisms.
It will be harder than
all
you
7
think.
of them.
Hashtag non-offensive mid-century colloquialisms.
I think
Yeah.
we should have Adam build a little tool that just self-generates them.
Oh,
Because the thing is, we found they have some.
a cadence.
They share some linguistic properties, and I'm pretty sure we could just have Adam figure it out and have him write a thing that just builds out all these words that sound like mid-century.
We would still need to probably
colloquialisms.
double check
Yeah,
that.
I was gonna say, there's probably enough.
This
that-
robot is even racist. When it comes to
Everything from the mid-century, even if it's generated in 2016.
Well, I wanted to point out there's an interesting thing about this, which is that the idea that we're able to make the things that we think up in particular has not been a thing yet. What I mean by that is if we said, "Oh, I want to put a robo-mowing goat ghost in here," up until now, like the reason I've been practicing all the art, and you've probably been seeing some of it leak onto the internet a bit, is that I have not been able to actually hit a concept that we put out there in the ether accurately at all.
Yeah,
So what
the-
ends up happening is it's just sort of like a random image finder is basically what I've
Yeah, the characters and stories in our games are not intentional. They are retconned. So whatever art Sam had been able to make, we would then explain it later with a story.
Yeah.
So
So
I
now we're
like
trying
that
to do it
approach.
the other way around.
like
which
the
is
banana
harder.
arms.
Yeah, banana arms, quadrupus, because we didn't want to do all 8 tentacles.
Right.
It's supposed to be an octopus.
Yeah.
but,
And
you
he
know.
couldn't draw arms and legs.
Yeah.
yeah, which is why we don't make humans very often unless they're in mech suits, basically.
Yep.
All right, next question comes from Alan Falcon, who asks, "What's the trashiest TV show that you nevertheless watched more than 5 episodes of?"
I got one.
What?
Naked and Afraid XL.
Oh.
it's so good. I also like to refer to it as Idiots in the Woods.
It's so. Have you
It's-
seen it, Carol?
No.
So the
Sure, have
premise
you
of the
seen
show.
I've seen the trailer.
Oh, it's
The premise of the
incredible.
show is they take these survivalists, these people who just, are all about, I can live in any environment. And they have to strip down naked and they throw them into the wilderness somewhere. And there's, I think, something like 20 of them, and they just kind of scatter them all over the place.
But they're in.
They're in
This
some
is real wilderness. This is not.
they're in some real harsh areas, with actual, things like electric eels as the only food source and stuff like that. And they sort of, it's weird because they have to survive for 40 days and they can tap out at any time. And the goal is to get to the end. And there's no, as far as I understand, there's no prize. Like you just are
don't think so.
done. There's no cash prize or anything like that. They just have to live in the woods for 40 days. And they form these weird tribes, and there's all kinds of weird group. Like the wilderness is actually not the part that gets people to leave. It's the group dynamics of
Sure.
how
Yeah.
people treat each other.
I think the only one and the one that we saw was the guy who got he gets super dehydrated in the first 3 days because they could not find water, which is
3
crazy.
days,
For
and it
3
was
days.
it was over 100 degrees, and they were hacking through brush and
Oh,
stuff.
God.
Right. I think that was the only guy who tapped out for actual
Environmental
physical-
worldly
reasons,
reasons. Yeah. Anybody else who left was like, I can't handle these pieces of garbage.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Lord of
Humans.
Flies, or
Yeah,
it is, yeah.
It's like corporate America. Most people can put up with it unless they've got a terrible boss.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah. That's exactly right. Yeah. Speaking of which, I hope we're doing okay, Caroline. Sure,
I
on
guess,
the
Yeah.
boss front.
I guess we'll talk about it later.
It's a great way to just soften that entry. Speaking of which, we need to chat.
Yeah, what about you guys? What kind of garbage TV shows do you like?
I watch way too much stuff on Netflix, and so I've actually had to cut myself off.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've chatted about this, but I tend to lean toward Netflix addiction,
Mm.
and so I've watched a lot of garbage on Netflix.
It's easy to do.
yeah,
It's easy to fall into that hole.
I mean, I watched The Bachelor and The Bachelorette every single season. So
That's pretty trashy.
it's super trash.
That's
Well,
very trashy.
yeah, it's trashy. I can't really argue with that.
Yeah.
I don't watch anything that garbage on Netflix.
It's incredible though, just from watching. It's kind of it reminds me of Idiots in the Woods in a sense, where
You'd be naked and afraid.
Idiots in the woods.
the funny thing was when we were at GDC, we were at the Games Developer Conference in San Francisco. We'd get back after all the talks and meeting with people and stuff at like 7 p.m. We'd have an hour or two before we had to go out again to meet with people, and everybody would just sort of slurb onto the beds and just lay there.
That's the sound it
It
made.
just melted. And then we put on Idiots in the Woods and watched the show because it was just so fun. It was just like a fun way to decompress, which I think is kind of the function of these trashy shows. You know, they're not, it doesn't involve any.
Like my brain stopped working.
Yeah, I can just enjoy it,
But it's not bedtime
It's
yet.
just weird social interactions and stuff. But that's the reason why I like The Bachelor and The Bachelorette is because it's such a extreme scenario psychologically for all those people. And the first bit of it, the first probably half of each season is kind of just whatever, because it's usually a bunch of people who don't matter to the person who's choosing at the end of the day, sort of slowly fighting it out for no reason until they get kicked off. Like, you can usually tell who's going to be the top people within 2 episodes or so. And then all these people duke it out. And so there's always a bunch of this sort of useless drama there. But the really interesting stuff happens when it gets down to like the last 3 or 4 people. Because at this point, you have a human who has, up to this point, never essentially attempted to simultaneously love 4 people at once, and they find that they can. And then there's this, like, you have to keep cutting these people, and the amount of emotional trauma is just like insane. It's
I didn't
crazy.
even think about that. That's weird.
It becomes like The Walking Dead. It's like you can't kill off any characters in that. You just can't let go.
Yeah.
Great idea.
What?
Storyline that recreates The Bachelor in Butterscotch universe.
Okay. I think you could turn it into a Bureau of Shipping game.
Yeah.
Real quick. If you're trying to hire someone in, you start with a pool of 25 applicants.
Hiring Simulator 2016.
It's an unpaid, like an entire.
Well, it's an unpaid
6-week
internship,
thing.
so you can send them out into the asteroid field to go die while collecting juice.
That's right.
For roid rage.
I'm all in.
Sure, do you watch any garbage shows?
Yeah, there is this Mandarin show. It's I don't remember the English name, but it's something translates to like I am the highest princess, or like I am the best princess. It's about this super rich like female like brats in Canada.
It's like, was it My Super Sweet 16?
Yeah.
Something
Kinda
like
like
that.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just about a bunch of very, very rich young females, mostly of like Asian descent, and then just how they compare their wealth to each other, slam each other for their poor taste of like fashions.
So it's
And
good
then-
watching rich people fighting.
Yes,
rough.
exactly. Yeah. I mean,
it's so bad.
It's
Wait.
pretty trashy, but then the thing is just that, it kinds of like, because like they will say things so ridiculous that, in the first you just be like, why would you think of that? But as you watch them more and more, you just be like, okay, that makes a lot of sense with the way how they were brought up.
Right,
Because,
of course.
if you were served, if like ever since like you were born, you're just showered in like money, and you get whatever you want, and the people around you just flatters you non-endlessly.
And you're
Right.
taught that's what's important.
Yes, and then that's how you form your view of the world. And then like when you look at those people, like that's really how they think. They're not acting. That's how they think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think trashy TV could teach us all a little something.
Different perspectives.
Oh wait, have you seen? I think it started in China, because I watched this with my fiance and her mom whenever I go and visit as a fam, and it's 25 women
Yeah,
on like a panel, and each of them has a little podium with a light on it,
yeah,
and a dude comes down in an elevator.
yep.
What's it called? It's called
It's kind of like a matchmaking.
curious where
I
this
think-
is going.
Yeah,
Where's this going?
it's called If You Are the One.
If
I
You Are the
think.
One, yeah.
Yes.
So you should watch it. It's incredible. So the guy comes down the elevator and then comes out, and people turn off their lights if they're not interested. Okay, so the guy walks out, and sometimes like half the lights go off.
Oh, man.
It's like,
Yeah.
Poor
nah, I
guy.
don't want that. But then they go through, and there's 3 separate segments where it's him talking about what he does and sort of who he is, and then it's like friends talking about
Yep.
who he is or something. And
Yep.
so people are during the videos.
Oh man, that's potentially really demoralizing
Oh,
for
yeah.
that person.
Yeah,
right?
you're
I mean,
just-
if as people get to know you more and more, they're like, oh no.
Yeah,
Like,
well,
now
there's
that
also-
I really deeply know this person, I am definitely not interested.
There is also the reverse case. I think I remember is like, so the person so the person can choose whatever like they want to say in those clips. So I remember there was once there was this rich guy. He didn't say anything in his first clip, and a bunch of females just like put the lights off. And then they play the second clip, and it's like, "Oh, by the way, I'm like a millionaire. I have
that's down.
I have
Oh,
a lot
no.
of money." And then suddenly, the rest of the female. So previously, you see the female who are who are left, they're just kind of like, "Okay, yeah, I don't think I would really choose him." And then when the second clip plays, and they're like, "You know what? I think he is a really good guy." My opinion
messed
just
up.
totally changed.
You get the dollar signs in the
What's
eyes.
interesting is the theme of trashy television, like the least common denominator is the fact that this is reality TV. You've all brought up.
Yep.
And when I was thinking of trashy television, trying to even come up with any shows, I'm thinking of bad sitcoms like The New Girl and stuff like that. But all three of you are like, nope.
It's just reality
shows. Reality
Yeah.
shows.
I mean,
Well, and you also
there-
know that behind the scenes, the producers and stuff, they are
there's-
stirring the pot the whole time. Like they want that drama.
it's
and
such
stuff.
a weird like media genre.
It is.
It's
Wait, wasn't there that reality game jam that's supposed to happen years ago where all the indies
Let's not
pulled
talk
out?
about
You know
that.
what I'm talking
I don't really want to talk about that.
There are
You can,
articles.
you can Google it.
It was a
I was just
dumpster
very,
fire.
as far as producers stirring the pot, that's basically
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it brings
an
the
example.
worst
There's a lot
out
of
of people.
if you're interested, I think Adriel Wallach actually wrote a really, really good article on what happened.
Yeah.
And it gives you a lot of insight into, even if you think that people are well intentioned and there's a good idea behind a show, like let's show people how fun and cool it is to make video games and how diverse game makers can be. When it all boils down to it, it's all about ratings and it's all about getting people excited and all about fabricating drama whether or not it's there.
Mm-hmm.
And so
And the
it
games
was,
community, especially the indie game community, is not a good place to try to stir up drama between individuals.
yeah, we
because
love each other.
yeah, everybody's really supportive, and all that happened was they tried to stir up drama, and everybody's like, "Nah, fuck this." And they just
Yeah,
left.
and
They just left.
it was just such a shitty situation, and I feel really bad for everybody who was involved with
sounds
that.
terrible. Yeah, if you want to read about it, go read about it. We're not going to talk about it anymore.
Yeah.
It was
but
just called Game_Jam.
I think so.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
check it out.
There are
It
stories.
was a few years back.
All right, let's move on. Next question comes from Ellen 3000. Is it? Do you think their name is actually Ellen?
Ellen?
Here it's just letters.
If so, that's
LN.
awesome. An awesome way to spell it.
I wonder if we'll see
LN.
Ellen 3001.
It's like
soon.
if I'm thinking Andre 3000.
Yeah,
it
it's
could
probably
be
this. It's maybe like the sister of Andre.
Yeah, I think so.
Ellen 3000.
He asks, how is the Crashlands user-generated content creator coming along? Any other cool features to look forward to with Crashlands coming in the future?
Same Dormouse 85 asked a very similar question to that,
Yeah.
so we could answer them both.
Their question was, it's been a while since you guys talked about the Crashland editor not being impatient, but what's going on with that?
I like that they're not being impatient. That's,
appreciate it.
Yeah,
That's like saying I'm not sexist, but you sure act like a woman.
yeah.
I'm not being impatient, but where the fuck's that creator?
With all due respect.
So,
Nothing ever good.
Yeah, I think-
comes after, with all due respect.
yeah. No offense, but
Yeah, there's what are those called? Those phrases. It's like it's trying to like cede responsibility before you say something shitty. Right?
Yeah.
If you ever start a
know-
sentence
A
with
diversion.
"I'm not sexist, but I'm not racist, but,"
honestly,
With all
anytime
due
it's
respect.
I'm not blank, but
But
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Don't
not
do it.
saying that this is the
Ugh.
case, but
That reminds me of the Krav Maga instructor. He literally said, "I'm not a victim blamer, but," and I was like, "All right, I'm out.
Let's
I'm
talk
out."
about how victims are at fault here.
Yeah, I was totally.
But
tuned out
actually,
after that.
yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so
Okay, so
Crashlands creator.
Crashlands creator.
what's the
Adam.
story?
Adam has been jamming on it. He's doing a bunch of work on rebuilding some of the web infrastructure to make sure that it works really smoothly and is really reliable and also affordable for us to maintain. Because it's going to be a beast of a whole bunch of interlocking parts, and we're going to have to store all these campaigns online and stuff like that.
So I think he learned Amazon Web Services this last week and has been also building an API for BSID.
Yeah.
So
There's a
He's a
lot
little
of stuff
busy.
happening. But yeah, so right now the focus is on controller support for Crashlands and alternative control schemes. And once we get through with that, we have a couple events happening, and then it's just full time on the creator. So that's
Yeah,
about it.
yeah, that is about it. I mean, we toyed with exactly how to. We want to make sure that the user experience for this thing is good.
Well, that's
Across
honestly
all
all it
platforms.
is, because
Yeah.
it works, and the official Crashlands campaign was made in the Crashlands creator.
Right.
I mean, it's a fully functional tool. It just is impossible to understand for somebody who isn't sitting there getting a lesson from Adam.
So I mean, we'll be doing basically a beta as soon as we can. But then I mean, there's gonna be a lot of testing here too, because we found. I mean, there's so many problems when we used it to build the hugeness of the story that is Crashlands. I think when we have a bunch of people who are learning how to use it, that's where stuff gets broken on accident in ways that you don't anticipate, basically.
Well, and it's also the case that so let's say you're building a campaign and you want your friends to help you test it. So you start building this campaign and you write a couple of quest lines, and then you think to yourself, oh, actually, it'd be really super cool if I added some intermediate quests in the middle there that did all this different stuff. And so they go in and they add those quests in between, and then they publish that campaign for their friends to play. right? What happens?
Right.
'Cause now
the
you-
friends have already completed the further part of the quest.
The friends have already completed the quests and they've already done everything further downstream. And so that's the kind of stuff where we've already gotten it set up so that it handles those kinds of things. But it's still the case that now you have a confusing situation because we have to auto complete those quests and so sort of intermediately and then hand your friends the rewards for those quests and make everything happen. But your friends will never see the quest.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's important story content in there or that, opens up a new branching quest that they are supposed to go do or whatever, and they just won't see it now. And so this is why like the responsibility is going to have to be largely on the creator of the campaign to make sure they think through these things and test it. And so we have to kind of convey just how complicated it is to be updating these things in real time while having people play it.
Yeah,
and there's okay.
I was going to say, we even ran into a similar situation when we were putting together the demo for the Science Center a couple of weeks back. We, last minute, we decided to add in a change where there was a trigger that prompted dialogue that, teed off the end of that quest. But then at the beginning, you could actually skip over that trigger by just going straight to a warp.
Yep.
And so it skipped over the trigger for the end of the quest.
And then you're
so
trapped.
It broke the entire creator. And we had just updated that. And we hadn't thought through it. We hadn't really considered how to avoid something like that.
And it takes a lot of testing and it takes a pretty deep understanding of all the different game mechanics, so if you put an item down in the game in the Crashlands creator, you should know what that item does and how the player can interact with it, because if you have a quest that depends on that item or whatever, what happens if it disappears or if the player just doesn't see it or skips it somehow, right? So you have to be very thoughtful.
Well, I mean, it's very much going to put that actual experience of designing a game into the hands of, or a narrative structure for a particular game into the hands of all the players, which is crazy because the actual sort of mental overhead for this, it's essentially programming. It's story programming at the end of the day. It has its own interface, its own language. So there's a lot to learn, which means that we also need to produce some training,
documentation.
Yeah, some training materials and maybe even training videos and that sort of thing, just to show how the flow of these things go. And then we have these rewind and fast forward quest tools that are actually inside the game, which we may need to be able to surface and turn on and make sure that if say this is quest number 56 and I just modified and added 2 quests before it, I need to be able to rewind so I can test those new things. So when we built the creator, we were building all these other ancillary tools to make it work. So there's just a lot of stuff there. And then on top of that, I think Carol's going to do some work to actually make it look good at the end of the day.
I'll be working
that's
on some
important.
designs.
Yeah.
It right now looks like a bunch of white boxes with black lines around them. So
Not the cutest thing.
So the moral of the story is we're giving you the power to manipulate time and space in the whole world.
But it turns out it's complicated.
Yeah. And also with great power, it comes with great responsibility. So we
That's
need
what
to have
they
some
say.
tutorial for you.
Yep.
All right, next question comes from Alan Falcon, who asks, when you're driving alone in a car, what do you listen to? Traffic sounds, podcasts, radio, Spotify?
My inner monologue screaming. I did that one time, actually. I was driving home from a game event, and suddenly I became hyper aware of the fact that I was controlling a
2-ton death machine.
2-ton death machine going at breakneck speeds,
Riding on explosions.
Yeah, and it was this really weird thing where I suddenly felt like connected to the pavement and was very, very aware of my own speed and my own presence around other cars, and I felt very dangerous. And so I was just the entire time inside my brain, I was just screaming wildly.
It is remarkable how the reality of that situation is so casual to everybody. So because all we do is we just paint a line down the road and we go, okay, when you're going 50 miles an hour this way, stay on this side of the line. You're going 50 miles an hour the opposite direction, just make sure you stay on the other side of the line. And we all just trust that that's going to work out.
There's an interesting study on this though, because there's a question of they kept on making roads wider in the past because it's more comfortable, of course, to drive on a wider road.
You get lazier.
This is the thing. So it turns out that if you look at traffic accident data, roads that are narrow actually have less traffic accidents sort of per car that goes on it than these ones that are super fat lanes.
People are freaking out the whole time.
People are tripping and they're actually focusing on driving really intensely the whole time, because if you're like going around turns and it's a narrow road and stuff, you're really paying attention. So stay in the line, don't go flying off the cliff on your right, don't hit the car on your left.
This is why you see these pictures of these super windy roads in the Himalayas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where the road is, 4.5 feet wide or whatever, and it just goes to a straight 400-foot drop off, and people just every day, drive up and down those roads, no problem. And they're one lane. I don't even know what do you do if somebody's coming down the opposite direction?
You go in reverse.
You go in reverse.
Yeah.
Back down the road.
And you scream both internally and externally.
But no, because they don't, because it's just so casual.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Just your brain is like, well, this is fine.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
So anyway, what do you listen to?
I mean, I just listen to the radio when I come to work every day when I go home. I've been meaning to put podcasts on my thing to listen to, but I kind of just enjoy the general chatter of the morning radio show hosts. They're usually saying silly stuff.
Talk about trashy.
I mean, I think they're hilarious. I mean, I don't like the stuff where they're like, let's do the celebrity gossip piece or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit. But when it comes to them just like cracking jokes about stuff, or they do kind of what we do, which is they'll say, oh my God, this thing happened to me yesterday.
Mm.
And then tell this hilarious story, which I appreciate. So that's always fun. And then I just listen to it. That's it. How
Yeah.
about you?
Yeah, I think I listened to a podcast. So I was a loyal subscriber of
Coffee with
Butterscotch.
Butter
yes.
with butterscotch.
Yeah. So I used to listen to this podcast a lot, and aside from that, just listening to news and stuff from the podcast, it's pretty nice.
I'm a big fan of the McElroy brothers, which they started an comedy advice podcast called My Brother and Me. And they just take questions from listeners,
Did
and
they do Yahoo?
and
Yahoo
they also
questions?
take questions from Yahoo Answers.
Yeah.
And
God.
they just
That's a good idea.
and they mostly don't give advice, and they just kind of make jokes and do
Yeah.
comedy. But then they also have they've all gone full-time podcasting, and they all have their own shows. So like one of them does a show called Schmanners, where he and his wife do research on etiquette and manners and that kind of stuff, and they talk about what you do in these different scenarios. One of them has a show called Bunker Buddies, where they talk about various apocalyptic scenarios and how you would deal with it. But the best one is the three brothers and their dad. They have a show called The Adventure Zone, where they just play Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, that's so
And
cool.
Their campaigns are amazing. They have this campaign that's basically a Mad Max Dungeons and Dragons campaign, and it is unbelievably cool.
Battle
I
wagons,
miss
right? Isn't that
D&D.
what they call them?
It's a battle wagon race. Yeah. So I mean, and their story arc is phenomenal, and their characters are hilarious. One of them plays a wizard named Taco, who's an elf, and he has this ridiculous voice that he uses. And he's on a quest to invent the taco, and so. But
like an actual Mexican taco or
Yes, yeah.
Japanese for octopus?
Yeah, because in the universe where they exist, there is no such thing as a taco.
Yet.
And so he is trying to constantly prod the dungeon master to allow him to have revelations about different food combinations, so that he can invent this food and name it after himself.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, it's amazing. The Adventure Zone. Check it out.
Nice.
Yeah, we should probably play some D&D sometime
Yeah,
soon.
we should.
I miss it.
We
so
used
bad.
to.
We
gotta start
sure
doing
wasn't there yet, but our old buddy,
Old
Old buddy.
Stuart. Shout out to Stuart if he's listening. But Stuart was the one who got us all into D&D in the first place. He runs Earthbound Brewing on Cherokee Street, and he is one of the best dungeon masters. He just allows
Hilarious.
so much creativity
Mhm.
and is just so flexible. And he writes the backstories to these campaigns, and he would message us all individually with our own personal backstories, so we would have information that the other players wouldn't have. And
I miss being the dual javelin wielding cleric who worships Javalos,
Javalos.
the god of track and field.
I think I was in your church.
You what?
I was in your church.
Yeah, I started recruiting followers. It was
Yeah.
amazing.
I was my name is Klepsy, and I was a thief
With a
really long
cursed long middle finger.
middle finger on one hand that was
That
always
always-
wiggling around, had no bones in it.
It was like a
It was like a
tentacle,
tentacle,
and
just
it always tried to
huge
steal
and-
things
yeah.
on its own.
I couldn't stop it. Turns out my character was somewhat, I guess, just partially possessed by some big crazy demon thing.
Yeah.
Just your finger was
Just
possessed.
I only got the finger before I got out of the cave. That was the story.
I don't remember my name, but I remember I drank a hair growth serum, and so you don't want to know what my lasso was made out of.
Oh, those were the days. All right, next question. Before we get into that,
Block that from memory.
next question comes from Cold Squid, who asks, or who says, I got to say, I'm pumped/amped to hear you will be attending PAX Prime this year, and I'm especially jazzed to meet you. his question, which we can talk about this in two parts, is what game coding questions do you think are realistic for a Chromebook bound student?
Game coding options. A
So
Chromebook is
Basically
running.
engines.
What is a Chromebook running?
It's running Chrome OS, I think. So it's it's exclusively web-based.
Browser, right?
Browser-based, yeah. So
how do you make a game in a browser? How do you learn how to be a
Twine?
game dev using only a browser? Twine.
So
works.
Twine is an option.
That'd be text-based adventure, choose your own adventure stuff.
Yeah,
cool.
but that's all. I mean, you can do a lot of heavier functionality using JavaScript, and
Right.
I think there's variable.
Right, you can basically build an RPG in it, can't you? If you're
I believe so.
you're
Yeah,
savvy.
I mean, you can do a lot with Twine
Yeah,
if
Twine
you
would be cool.
if you try real hard.
Mhm.
And then, Scratch is web based, but you can't do a lot with that yet.
Mm.
It's not a lot of functionality, but if you're just wanting to learn the basics,
Mhm.
that's a drag and drop programming interface.
I have an idea.
What's
yeah.
that?
You can also read a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, if a big part of developing games is learning a lot of shit about basically everything.
Mhm.
So just read a lot of stuff. You know, go to Gamma Sutra, which is the industry site is Gamma Sutra with a G.
Yeah, don't misspell that.
Don't land in the wrong corner of the
Hoi,
internet.
hoi, hoi, hoi.
And and there's all kinds of books you can get as well, which I believe you can use a Chromebook to order books off of Amazon.
That's
and then
true.
and then read this. Like Game Design, a Book of Lenses is a good one to start. And you can also spend a lot of time just writing game design documents and trying to come up with interesting game ideas and like even if you can't write code, you can still work on game ideas.
Get the numbers or get
Yeah.
the ideas flow.
Get the ideas.
And we
going.
were just talking about D&D. You can always write tabletop campaigns and
yeah.
play test
Yeah.
them. You can always design board
Board
games and
games,
card
yeah.
games. I mean, these are really, really great exercises, and all of that game design knowledge and all that game design experience carries over to video games once you actually have something that you can use a more convenient engine like Game Maker or Unity or Game Salad or something.
Yep.
But that would require an OS that can support it in that case.
Yeah, I was
Mac
gonna
or Windows.
Mac
Yeah,
or Windows.
yeah.
I was gonna say the book that Seth recommended, the Game Lenses book. That one is really good. It's really good starting place. It tells you where you can probably start off with your constraints, and then where to go from that. So yeah, I would definitely say, if you're feeling a little bit lost, maybe read on some of that, and that
Get
will
some
give
books.
you a lot of ideas.
Yeah.
Cool. And he mentions the PAX Prime
Yeah.
situation. So, brief recap: we got into PAX 10, and that's what we do every time that word is mentioned out here. Someone screams. So
We'll see how well these new microphones work.
Yeah.
There.
See, I backed off a couple of feet so that I wouldn't
blow it
flip
out.
it. Yeah.
So we'll be going, and we'll be in Seattle the 2nd through the 6th, maybe whatever it is.
Something like that. We'll be
You
in
can-
Seattle that
you
weekend.
can Google
Labor
it.
Neighbor.
Google
Is it Labor Day?
Labor.
Labor Day. So we'll be there. We'll be laboring. though.
Dabo.
But we got some fun plans for the booth setup and stuff, which we have a little small space because there's 10 of us packed into one bigger spot. But I think we have some good ideas for how to handle the demo. We ordered buttons, so you can get a Crashlands button, which is super cool, and we got some pins of Hugo Duco. So if you're there,
well,
you'll
you
get
should
some
describe because I didn't know this. What is the difference between a pin and a button?
So a pin is essentially it's like think about it more like a metal cutout of a particular character or shape, or whatever else, with the
But it's
nice
hand-painted.
safety pin. Is it hand painted?
It's hand painted.
Hand painted.
Well, I don't know that it's but it's painted. It's not.
It is painted.
It's not printed.
Right. Yeah. So they paint it. It's enamel. Is that what it is?
It's soft enamel.
and it's textured and amazing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's bumps in it.
Yeah.
Because it's got the lines and stuff. I don't know.
It's beautiful.
So we ordered a bunch of those Hugo pins. I think like 500 of them.
Yeah, and it's
So-
just that little. It's sort of like a scout pin or a military pin or something where there's just a pin that comes out the back and you put a little clasp on it.
Right. So if you come by the booth, you can get one there, and we'll probably run out that weekend, I would assume. So
Well, as we
Yeah.
discussed in a previous podcast, Sam is just going to be flinging these pins, Mr. Pointy side out
First.
right
Stabbing,
into
Mr.
people's
Poking.
chests.
Yeah.
So
and we got the buttons. So
Yeah.
those are just little. We got Crashlands ones and the ones that just say BS on them.
Hmm.
And the BS ones are much more rare. So we'll see people walking around. Those will be fun.
I'm excited for
Because
the
I want people to
BS
be like,
buttons.
"Where did you get that BS pin? Like,
Yeah.
what are you doing?"
Yeah.
So that's good. And then we made little business cards that have some of the Crashlands info, since that's what we'll be showing.
Yeah, they're sort of like tiny, tiny, tiny mini posters. They look really good.
Yeah.
That's shut up, Beepy. Oh,
yeah,
Philip.
we
That's a
named the
Philip.
coffee machine. We need to talk about this real quick.
Yeah.
We've been naming our appliances.
Yeah. So Carol brought in a label.
A label
Do you
maker.
have a label gun?
I've got the label maker. I actually brought it with me today so that we can name Philip. We can dub the Sir
Yeah,
Philip.
so the microwave is named
Hannibal Lecter.
Hannibal Electrowave.
Hannibal
Lecter
Lecter.
wave.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because it is eerily quiet and creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes no noise while it's microwaving things.
It's disconcerting.
It's
Yeah.
very, very
And
disconcerting.
then we have our Mr. Coffee, which we realized the first name of Mr. Coffee is Philip.
because yesterday Seth goes, "Would you fill up with some coffee?"
Yeah,
We were like, Philip Coffee?
Philip.
Coffee.
That's the name. So we got to get a label on that, Philip Coffee.
We're thinking about putting googly eyes on it too.
Mhm.
I think we need a googly eye all of the appliances.
Uh,
And we also have a recycling bin named Steve.
Steve. SCHTEPH.
Yeah.
Steve.
So we got a whole anthropomorphic kitchen set over there.
We haven't named the fridge yet.
Or the trash can.
Or the trash can.
We'll get there. It'll come.
It'll come.
It'll come. All right. Well, I think that concludes this episode of Coffee with Butterscotch. So thanks a bunch for all the questions and for listening. We'll be pumping out some content related to your Crashlands and some
You
other
mean
stuff.
brunch.
Sorry, codename brunch. And we'll be doing that stuff this week. And pay attention on the forums on butterscotch-shenanigans.com, the twits, the Instagrams, all the things. Is there
Yeah.
anything else?
Just point your eyes toward the internet.
Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and then we're going to be starting up this scoop of butterscotch thing
via the website.
So we'll send out a note to all of our good newsletter subscribers and let you sign up for that as you like, because that's going to be weekly and we don't want to annoy you if you don't want to be annoyed.
But
Like,
otherwise,
you
people are
really should
annoyed.
have dedicated your life to us.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Unsubscribe from everything else.
Give us your
Resubscribe to
souls.
Bscotch.
Thanks for the listen. Goodbye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye.